Hello, everyone, and welcome to Art School Live. My name is 𝗠𝗏𝗍𝗫. I'm the director of the School of Atelier Arts, and today I am filling in for our dear friend 𝗟𝗶𝗰𝗄, who is away in China, of all places, doing his art adventure thing that he does. And today we have a very special guest for you and a dear friend of mine, 𝗏𝗵𝗿𝗁𝗍𝗫. So, Ricky, welcome to the show.
Hi, Mandy. It's good to see you again.
It's always lovely to see you, Ricky. So, tell us a little bit about what you're going to teach us today.
So, I'm teaching a different approach to charcoal painting. The ideas are a little bit different than the whole linear way of starting. This approach lends itself well to speed drawing, but also for working out further, working the painting further, taking it further along. However, it's very painterly, and what I'm going to do with the with this charcoal painting. I call it a charcoal painting because it's going to be like painting, as you're going to see in a second. What I'm going to do is first I'm going to start blocking it in with, big pieces of charcoal, just the shapes, just the shape of the light and the dark. And then, hopefully I have enough time. There's a treat. I take, you know, this is drinking alcohol. I guess I shouldn't show the label, but it's drinking alcohol. This is 190 proof grain alcohol, and I paint it on with the charcoal, and it gets these wonderful effects, and it dries instantly, unlike if you use water, and it looks like watercolor. And what's great is that this isn't toxic like some of the other things that people use to
Oh,
get the alcohol to move.
okay,
And
Ricky, I cannot wait to learn with you today. We got to play our
well,
intro here for just a
well,
second, and then we'll
the
get
best. Let
right
me
in.
just mention that the best thing about this is if your painting is going bad,
Oh.
someone take a sip. All right.
All right, let's get the show started.
It's Art School Live with 𝗟𝗶𝗁𝗄𝗏. Now, here's your host, 𝗟𝗏𝗄𝗏.
You may have noticed I am not 𝗟𝗏𝗄𝗏. My name is 𝗠𝗏𝗍𝗫. I'm the director of the School of Atelier Arts. And today we have the one, the only, 𝗏𝗵𝗿𝗁𝗍𝗫 joining us. And we've already hopefully had our minds blown a little bit because he's going to show us a painterly way to approach drawing. And instead of using any of the toxic mediums, or I should say traditionally toxic mediums, he has a very special medium that he uses for his drawing. So Ricky, take it away.
Okay, so we're going to get started. I want to mention that when I work this way, I'm not trying to be as perfect as when I do a more academic approach where I'm trying to be perfect with the proportions. When I work this way, I want it to be painterly, I want it to be loose, I want it to be spontaneous, and I just want to have fun. I always have fun when I work this way. So let's get started. I'm going to go over to my uh, canvas, and I'm just gonna start. What I've done is I have well, first of all, I like to draw with these things. I went to the Home Depot to the garden center, and I bought these little bamboo rods, and I cut them up and I split them and I put the charcoal in, and then these are little ring washers to hold the charcoal in place, and it allows me to paint with the charcoal as if it's a brush. But what I like to do, um, to mimic almost the feel of paint, is that I'll take a piece of very, very soft vine charcoal and I break it up. Oops, just dropped them. Hold on a second.
That'll help you break them, I think, right?
That helps me break them. And I break them up into different sizes. So I got little ones. I have a little tiny one, so I can make like a brush stroke. And so I have a whole mess of them. So that and I have some of this thick charcoal that I can use the side. I can use this way. I can use a corner, right? Just to get different kinds of, you know, brushy effects with it. And I think about it at first at this stage as if I have four brushes. I have the charcoal flat, the charcoal point, the edge, or more than four brushes. I have my thumb, I have the eraser, and sometimes I can use a stump. And I also have a bunch of brushes that I'm going to use. I'll show you later. You'll see how they come in. But I have a synthetic brush for dipping in the charcoal, a couple of different sizes. And I have some bristle brushes that are great. They're better. They make a more organic smudging than the stump. The stump very often wrecks the paper. But
Mm.
with the bristle brushes, you don't wreck the paper, and then you can get smooth areas. And you'll see how that'll work with when I put the charcoal on. So first things first, what I want to do more than anything, the very first thing that I like to do, let me just make my reference a little bit closer to me so I can see it better.
And while Ricky's doing that, let us know in the chat who here has experience with charcoal. Has anybody ever tried it and maybe it didn't go so well, or you tried it and you loved it? Know what your experience is with this particular media.
Well, the beautiful thing about charcoal is that if you treat it right, you can be very flexible with it, almost as flexible as oil paint, and you can have a more organic approach. But you can also, by the same token, be very careful with it and have a more traditional approach, like the kind that I teach when I teach with the Florence Academy, where it's a much more strict approach. You can do both, right? So I'm going to start with this because it allows me to be further away from the paper so that I can see what I'm doing. I'm not going to go crazy with the measuring because we don't have the time. Whenever you measure, it takes time. So I'm just going to eyeball it. So my first things that I want to do is I want to set the placement of my figure. So I think I'm going to start up here. Here's the head. Here's the top of the head, right? Maybe I'll move them over a little bit. Right. I just want to set my parameters. I always do this regardless of my approach. I like to set my parameters so that there's no surprises. Right. I've noticed just by looking at it that it's one head to the top of the arm. So I'm just going to make the size of the head, figure the arm's going to be here. Yeah, that gives me about right. And then looking at how far I'm going to get over here, I want to give him enough room to breathe. So I think I'm going to put it just a little bit over, right? Here's where his head is. I'm just making, just some marks. The head is taller than it is wide. And I guess that's about one head high, right? And then I see about over here is, if I double that, this is where the arm is. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just make it a little bit longer than it is, just for the sake of getting maybe a little bit of mannerism, so that his head is a little bit smaller, like traditionally, like some of the old masters might make the head smaller than the rest, so that you get this sort of more heroic feel. One of the things that I've noticed regarding the placement of the figure, there's no wrong and there's no right. Everybody, I've heard people tell you, oh no, you got to have certain amount distance. There's no wrong. There's only the effect that you want, right? And so what I've noticed, if you put the figure up high on the page, they feel heroic. They feel regal. Right? If I put the figure more in the middle, in the center, it's more personable. So like up high on the page, I'm, my king or warrior or whatever, more central, be more personal. You feel one-on-one with the figure, so family portrait. And low, you feel like you look down. It's not always, but that's the feeling that I get, right? And and it's an important thing to be aware of the feelings that you're getting from your painting. How much space I give here has an effect. How much space I give here, right? The more room I give him to breathe, the sort of more relaxed it is, even if he's cut off on this side. The closer I get to the edge, the more you feel a little bit tight and constricted. That's not wrong. Maybe that's what you want. Maybe you're trying to make maybe it's the person's in danger or something. You want to make the viewer uncomfortable, so where you place it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, but where you place is dependent on the feeling that you want to get. All right. So now that I get with that spiel, right here, I have
Ricky. Yesterday we had a tree painter on, a tree painting demo on. And it was really interesting to see some of the similarities of what you're talking about, how the placement of the trees will give you a different feel, the same as what you're saying, where you place your figure is going to give you a different feel.
Exactly. I'm a firm believer on the idea that there's no rules, right?
Mhm.
There are no rules. There's only your goals, right? You make a decision and then you make that decision work. Um, and it all depends on what you want. Do you want something to be balanced and comfortable to sit of, as decoration in your house, or do you want to make a social statement, or you know, that's what the composition serves the purpose of the painting. There's no rules. I don't believe there's rules because anything anybody tells you you can't do, somebody's done it and is in a museum.
Yes.
So there's only what you do. You make your decision and then you make that decision work. And if it doesn't work, be truthful with yourself enough to say, hey, this is not working. What
Mhm.
can I fix it? Or let me go back to the drawing board. Does that
Well,
make sense?
yeah, it's amazing that you only have a few lines down, but you've already spent so much time thinking through your composition.
Yeah, it's first of all, this way of painting, I just want to put a couple of lines down, and
Mhm.
only for placement. Now I'm just gonna start with the shapes, and I'm not gonna be care if I mess up a little bit or whatever. This it's just the shapes of the light and the dark, pretty much what I see when I squint, right? See, just coming in, I have the charcoal. I'm just using the side of it. This is the dark on his head, right? I noticed that um, from here, from his hairline to his chin, is about the same as the width to the back of the head, right? The the his eye his face happens to be broken up into thirds. So I'm just looking at this dark here, right? Here's the dark of the nose. Oops. One of the things that I do is I'm getting older. I drop my charcoal all the time. It's hilarious, right?
For those of you who might not be familiar with Ricky, he has a great sense of humor, and it's always fun to be in the studio with Ricky. I find that I'm laughing all the time when I'm painting.
Well, here we go. Um, here's the tip of the nose. This is, the shadow that comes down here, his mustache. Here's this triangle here, right? And I just want to have fun. You know, there's a song, our artists just want to have some fun or something.
Are you gonna sing it for us, Ricky?
Yeah, artists just want to have fun. I'm not gonna sing it right now. I haven't warmed up today. Okay, so notice how I'm just getting the shapes, right? I'm also wanting to match angles that I see, right? As much as I can, as close as I can to it, within reason, right? Um, because angles are so important. If you get all the angles right, the drawing takes care of itself, you know, and that's one of the best ways to go fast, right? So, for instance, here's where the eye would be, and this is where that shoulder comes out. And then there's a little bit of space here. This distance is about the same distance as the mouth. So this comes out only about as high as the face. I'm just matching the angles coming down. I want to get a little bit lighter than I am going. Remember, I did give him a little extra, making the head a little bit smaller than it is purposely, right? So, um, some of the measurements are going to be maybe a little bit funky at first. This is the shadow comes down his arm like this, right? This over here, just coming in and doing the arm. How fat is the arm? I see that the arm over here looks to me like it's about the same distance as from his nose to his chin. Okay, all right, that's good. I'm not trying to be a copy machine, but you can use clues. On a side note, when you're working way more detailed and more accurate than I am going to be working today, right? If you get your placement, if you get the head right, right, and you get all these proportions in the head correct, like if you spend a lot of attention, a lot of time trying to get the measurements in the head perfect, right? Then that head becomes like a key to the rest of the painting, right? Um, because you can use the head to measure this way, but you can use the parts of the head as well. So, for instance, I want to know how wide that arm is. Oh, that's about the same as from the nose to the chin, right? I want to know how wide this little flat here on the top of his shoulder is. Well, that's about the same as from his lip to his chin, right? Anything that you want to do, you can find from his scapula back here, right? I want to see how big that is. That's about the same, looks to me, from his chin to his eyebrows, you see. So you can use all the different, um, uh, you can use the face as a key. Now, I didn't make that up. That comes from Solomon J. Solomon. But it's a great way. I want to know how wide that arm is. Now, I would measure, right? Like if I'm in, more accurate mode, I would measure that hand on the model and then see if that matches anything on the face, if I've done the face, right? But right now, um because I'm just eyeballing it, right? I'm just looking at things that I see. Like, for instance, this is about the same as this, and it's the same about as this, and then this is about 2/3 of that, right?
Can you tell us
Looks like.
what paper you're working on today, Ricky?
What'd you say?
What paper are you working on today? There's some questions in the chat.
This is the Strathmore medium texture.
Oh,
The Strathmore, the 400 pound, or
mhm.
it's either the 400 or the 500. I think it's the 400. Right, right. So now you see here, I have this. I'm just going to go a little faster, right? I'm just getting all of this down, and I'm using my other brush, which is my thumb, right?
I like
To
that you call your thumb a brush, but it's true.
Right, the thumb allows me to get some softness, right? Now, I'm not so worried about getting this perfect, because when I come in with the alcohol, all of this is going to just change,
Mhm.
right? So I'm not even going to worry about getting super detail. Just, I want to get it good. I want to get it in the ballpark, right? Softening up areas. Let me fix this a little bit. This is straighter, right? Here's the chin. This angle is off, so his chin comes in a little bit further than what I got. You see, just a little bit at a time. I'm not sweating. Although, if this doesn't come out good, I will sweat, and I probably won't sleep for like 3 days.
So what you're saying is, like, you're like every artist that is putting themselves out there to help teach and is never satisfied with our end result.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's always, uh, you know, every one of the things that I like to the way I like to think about painting and drawing and all that stuff is that you're solving problems. I don't think about it as, oh, I can't do, how do you do a nose? Oops. How do you do a nose? I'm not doing a nose. I'm not getting, it's all problem solving, right?
I like
And
that.
that's the way, that's a much healthier way to think about painting, right? Because if everything is a problem, then it's not that you can't do something, it's that it's only a matter of time before you get it, but you find a solution. And time, you keep working on things until you solve them. So, unfortunately, when you are doing a demo, you don't have time,
Right.
right? So, but when you're at home in your studio, the idea is not to give up. My very first day painting, I was 15 years old. The very first time I started painting, on my first day, the first time I opened the paint box, I was a cartooning major in high school, right? First day I opened up my paint box, I sitting right next to me was Max Ginsburg. On the other side was his best friend, Erwin Greenberg,
Oh,
a
no.
legend teacher. Next to me was 𝗖𝗵𝗿𝗄. Behind me, behind me was Garen Baker. On the other side, it was 𝗥𝗶𝗰𝗸𝘆, and there were a couple of other heavy hitters in that class. And that was my first day. And ever since my first day, the only thing I've ever heard that's consistent is you're solving the problem.
Mm.
You're solving the problem and you're making the choices to solve the problem. And you find an addict. They're always talking about the solution to the problem.
Mm.
That's thinking that way is so healthy, because what happens is it eliminates the frustration. You are just working to solve whatever problem is in front of you. And sometimes you don't know how to solve it. So sometimes you look at an old master and you say, okay, what did Rembrandt do in this situation with the same thing? You have a problem with the eye, you have a problem with the composition. You see, you just look at the old masters will help you. You can see their solutions and they'll help you find your way to your solution. You see?
Mm.
Um, so you're always solving problems. The great thing about it is that it becomes so enjoyable, right? Because you're not, there's, there isn't the frustration, there isn't the beating yourself up. You're just getting closer and closer to the solution. Everything that you do, right, gets closer and closer to the solution, the problem that's in front of you. And every time you solve something, you get this boost of endorphins,
Yes.
and that's really, it really changes how you feel about painting. It's not that you can't do it, it's you haven't done it yet. It's like, can you do a crossword puzzle, right?
Mhm.
You need time. Sometimes a crossword puzzle takes forever, and
Mhm.
sometimes it just happens. But you'll have a word, or even a jigsaw puzzle. You'll have a piece that you just can't find. You know, it's not that you're inadequate. It's not that you can't do something. It's that you haven't found a solution, and that's it. And
That's
the
so
more you paint, the quicker you find solutions.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It's a wonderful philosophy. Something I've been having my own students do. So I teach online at the School of Atelier Arts, and I've been having students lately, do a master copy of a still life painting and then set up the exact same still life and paint it so that they can see how the master solved those problems. And I found it
Yes,
to be really effective.
that is really effective. I got to tell you. So I was 16 years old, struggling with doing an eye in a certain lighting, and I was really struggling. And in those days, my best friend was a guy named 𝗥𝗶𝗁. Some of you might know him. He's a comic book legend. He's Ghost Rider and stuff. He's one of the best draftsmen I've ever met in my life. We had a thing that we would go to the Met together at least, once or twice, 3 times a month, right? And just talk about the work. Well, this one day I'm really struggling with this eye and this certain lighting position, right? The eye is strong. So we go to the Met, and it just turns out that it's the exact same lighting as the Rembrandt self-portrait with the big black hat that's at the Met.
Yes.
And I looked at it, and all of a sudden I had a aha moment. And the next day I came in and I worked on that eye, and Max Ginsburg came up to me and said, "Wow, that's a great eye." So, you know, it's these are problems. You're all solving problems. Like right here, I haven't quite solved the problem with the hand, the arm. It's too close. And I see, once I know that it's a problem, I can just look at it and see what's wrong. Okay, look, there's not enough space here on the hand. So between the stomach and the hand, is the stomach in the right place? Lines up with the front. Yeah, it's about in the right place. I made it a little bit further, so it increases it. It adds to his gesture, but it's further over. It comes over here a little bit, you see?
Mhm.
So it's you solving problems. You know, what I'm doing right now is sort of optical drawing, right? I'm just thinking of shapes. I'm not thinking of it as a person or anything like that later on, right? You start thinking about the form and the person. But right now, I just want to get shapes. And that's a wonderful way of thinking about it, because if you think about everything that you paint as shapes, kind of like what a camera does, a camera um, doesn't know that this is a person, right?
Mhm.
Doesn't know the difference between a person and a forest, but it does a great job of getting it, right? Because the camera only captures the shapes that the light makes, and that's what Sargent called it retinal painting, You know, you're not painting a cheek, you're not painting a nose, you're painting the shapes that come back to your retina. That's an important thing, because if you just think of this as shapes, then there's only a couple of things that can be wrong.
Mhm.
It could be the wrong shape, right? So you see over here, this is more triangular, right, than what I got. It could be the wrong shape. The shape could be in the wrong place, right? My wrist was in the wrong place. The shape could be the wrong size. Should be bigger. You see what I'm saying,
Mhm.
right? The shape has the wrong edges. So, you know, are the edges sharp, soft of each particular shape, those interior shapes? The shape can also be too light, too dark, or if you're doing color, too red, too yellow, too blue,
Mm.
too gray, or too saturated.
But those are all solvable problems.
Those are all solvable problems. You know, oh, I can't get the nose is not a solvable problem. The
Mhm.
nose is wrong is not a solvable problem. The shapes that make up the nose. You know, the truth of the matter is we can't really paint a nose. Oh, no. You can sculpt a nose,
Mhm.
right? You can't paint a nose. It's two-dimensional. All you can do to get the nose is to paint the shapes that the light makes.
Mm.
That is so powerful, and it shortens the learning curve tremendously, uh, because you're just painting shapes. And then it's just a matter of saying, instead of saying, does this look like a hand? Does this look like an arm? Do my shapes look like those shapes?
Mm.
That's it. And that's just a really powerful way of thinking about the drawing, right? So, like, if I think about it that way, I say, oh, look, what's wrong here with the head? Well, this is a little bit further over because it's to the left of this. You see, this comes down straighter at this angle, like 6 o'clock, if this is a clock, right?
Mhm.
This angle is 6 o'clock, right? This angle over here is 10.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying? So if
Mhm.
you begin to think about it like that, then it's just a matter of, finding a solution and incrementally getting better. So the longer I worked, as if I had a couple of hours to do this, I would incrementally, uh, fix one little thing at a time until I get closer to my solution to what I'm doing. Does that make sense? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was at a luncheon the other day and I was asked something or somebody said something to me that I know that I hear all the time and I'm sure you do too, but I want to hear what your response to this is. So, she turned to me and she said, I can't even draw a stick figure, right?
Ah,
What do you say in response to that?
well, I've never met a stick figure, so it doesn't matter because you don't need to draw stick figures. Um, I think everybody can learn how to draw. This is teachable. It's teachable. It's doable. Doesn't require certain talent. This is a skill-based art. You work on a skill, you'll get it, right? So the ability to capture what you see is teachable. The ability to be an artist, I don't know. I still don't even know if I'm an artist. I don't know what that means, But as far as being able to teach is good. Once, uh, uh, anyway, while we're talking, I switched to my brush, to my synthetic brush, and I have my alcohol right here in a cup. I also have some charcoal powder. Every time I sharpen my charcoal, I just save it, right? I'm not going to use that yet. I'm just going to use it when I want to get dark accents. But I have this brush, and I'm using this brush at the moment, and I have some smaller ones. Anyway, back
Oh,
to
wait,
what I was saying.
yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry. I once saw a workshop, opera workshop by the great um, Franco Corelli at the 92nd Street Y. And he was talking about singing, right? And he said, anybody, unless you have some kind of physical problem, he can teach anybody to have a beautiful voice. You can have a beautiful voice. Anybody, it's teachable. He said now being an artist, being that's a different thing, right? He pretty much said what I said. Um, you know, who knows what that is, right? Uh, but you can teach, uh, just you can teach drawing and proportion and that kind of stuff is teachable.
Mm.
So you see, here I am coming in with this thing. Things I like about this, every once in a while, I just let it drip, right? Because I'm not necessarily just going for realism anymore when I do this kind of painting, right? Now, don't get me wrong, right? The fact that I can, if I wanted to, I can do very, very academic drawing. And that actually allows me to do this, right?
Sure.
The ability to take something, make it very detailed, very smooth, very very detailed, very smooth, very refined, very accurate, makes it easier to do this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I always felt that, getting your technical training was about giving you choice as an artist and tools to use, to express yourself, and that you weren't ever creating something out of default because you didn't have the skill or technique you needed to achieve what you actually intended.
Right. So that you can create what you want. You have control, right? To create what you want. If we had more time, I would show you some academic drawings by some of the people, people like de Kooning and stuff. They were amazing, right? The ability to draw helps you, right? The lot of the 19th century artists who have the classical training and then got influenced by the Impressionists, they're amazing because of the classical training. They were able to do what they want. You think about it, to be really colorful and to do what they want. You think about 𝗟𝗵𝗿𝗆, or you think about Zorn or Kreuer or 𝗥𝗶𝗰𝗴, or any one of these guys who are very painterly and almost impressionistic, Sargent, right? Sorolla, they have an academic training. So then they take that, and one of the great things about the academic training is that it allows you to learn how to see, right? But then, I think one of the big problems is people stay there. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
And so you never take it and find who you are. Do you know what I mean? So the danger sometimes of being trained, and this is true for music and for painting, right? The danger is that the training can sometimes lock you in from being creative. And Miles Davis was famously talked about Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix couldn't read music. He's probably, to me, in my opinion, the greatest guitar player that ever lived, right? But he couldn't read music. And Miles Davis said, had he been trained and learned music, he wouldn't be Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, interesting.
And there's something in that, right? But by the same token, there are plenty of amazing guitar players that are trained, right? And then they go off and they find their own way. And this is the same with art, right? I get so much pleasure seeing lots of my friends who do academic work, and seeing them, and some who I even taught, right? And see them now find themselves, and they're using the academic stuff as a springboard,
Sure.
right? And then they're going, they're doing amazing things that, where they're using their academic skill to be able to do what they want. And that may not necessarily be this polished, refined work.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents.
I love hearing the philosophy as well as the technique, because, they really aren't as separate as sometimes it feels when you're a student, right?
Yep. Yep. So you see, here I am. I've taken the alcohol and I've come in and I've just started to put down just areas, Now, mind you, keep in mind that if I were doing this on my own, I would spend hours and I would go a lot slower, get the proportions a lot better. But I hope you get the idea so far of what I'm doing.
Absolutely. And we have about 15 minutes, just so you know.
What'd you say?
We have about 15 minutes, just so you know.
All right. Oh, you guys. So I'm getting a smaller brush, and I'm taking this brush and I'm putting it in the alcohol, and then I'm dipping it in my charcoal powder. And then I have a little plate on the side over here that I'm using as a palette, you see? And I take that and I mix, and then you'll see just how dark you can get with that. Now, it doesn't have to be the last thing because you can use the bristle brush to brush it off. But here's to, you see?
Well, wow, that makes such a
You,
difference. I tell
you
you.
can, yeah, you can come in with this brush now, and I can, right? I can go in and get what I want, right?
Mhm.
Where it's dark. I can now I have dust on my thing. I can still, if I don't put it back in the dust, I can just add charcoal, alcohol,
Mm,
and it gets another, medium blend in here. Does that make sense?
beautiful.
Right? And here, let's add some more dust over here so we get this mustache. Now, please bear in mind that if I wasn't so pressed for time, I would spend a lot more time getting these proportions right. But there would be an hour, and I would be just at the beginning. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, honestly, because of this format where we're streaming it, like it's reading very cleanly, on our screen. And if you were tightening it, we might not actually get the benefit of being able to see those adjustments with this format. So it's reading really
Okay. So yeah, so it is reading. I hope. Yeah.
yeah.
Good. I wanna try and get to the point where I could show you a couple of things that you can do with the brushes if I wanted to make this very, very what's it call it smooth. This approach allows you to get, you'll see what I mean, really smooth. And then there's something else that you can do, which probably we won't get a chance to get really super smooth where you can't even see a stroke without it necessarily blending. All right. I'm gonna let that dry a little bit, and then I'm gonna come in and so one of the things I like to do, sometimes I'll use the hard charcoal to refine things, right? So maybe I'll do a little line right here, right? I'm just letting it sort of disappear. Maybe I'll come in and touch that up a little bit, So even if it goes outside of the lines, I can come in. We will read the lines. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
even if I've gone with the tone too far, I can come in with the hard charcoal and then just draw that line, and it's amazing what that does. Now,
It's been really wonderful seeing how you started this drawing with just like a little bit of a massing in, and that we can get it to read, at least from where we are, it's actually reading quite tight now with these lines that you're adding. And it's amazing seeing you build that up. A lot of times in the academic tradition, you see people going straight for the high finish, and this is more
right?
done in layers.
Yes. Here, this over here, this is some kind of graphite pencil. I can't remember the name of it. I've already gone through it, but it's a graphite pencil. And also, say if I wanted to, get a little bit of the form here in a more controlled way, I can go in, you see,
Mm.
and get that. And that becomes, I use it for the light so that I can get a little bit of the form if I want it. Does that make sense? And it works really well with the charcoal. Now I'm going to do one more thing over here, right? And then I'm going to show you something else. Let me let this dry. I'm going to put that there. That's the side. Oh, I got a nice strip there.
I'm just
I'll
saying, Yeah, I'm having a little bit of technical problems, and I think my computer's about to crash. So if you lose me, I promise I'll be right back as soon as I can.
Okay, you got it. So I got this drip here. I may want it, maybe I don't want it, right? I'm gonna let it dry. You can't do anything while the alcohol is wet, but fortunately the alcohol dries fast. So meanwhile, I'm taking this big block over here, and I'm just gonna come in and darken this area over here for the hair, right? Right. And I want to show you what you can do. One of the things that's really nice about this approach, right? And that is, well, as soon as that dries, I'm going to show you. I'm taking now the bristle brushes. You see, in the bristle brushes allow me to smooth. So you see all these striations here.
Yeah.
Suppose I don't want them. The bristle brushes. Look what they do.
Oh.
They get rid. So if I wanted to make something very smooth, and right, I can
There's
use
a
the bristle brush.
question for you, Ricky. Are you left-handed or are you purposely using your non-dominant hand?
Am I what?
Are you left-handed or are you
Left.
purposely
I'm lefty. I'm lefty.
There's a question.
But it's an interesting question because I can paint with either hand. I can draw and paint with either hand. And a long time ago, I had a mural. We had a mural company. Me, Garen Baker, and our friend Michael Albert. We had a mural company, and we did murals for Sony Theaters, for Magic Johnson, for Lowe's, and we had a studio up in Yonkers.
Mhm.
And had 30-foot ceilings, and we had this giant ladder. We would do them on panels, and that ladder was such a pain in the neck to move that I was lazy. So if I had a big area, 20-foot area to work on, I'd put the ladder in the middle, lean over to one side, paint with my left hand, go across, and then lean over to the right and paint with my right hand so that I wouldn't have to keep moving the ladder. And I learned to paint. I learned to paint with both hands.
I love this. For those of you who might not know Ricky, he is full of magical skills. Like, one time you'll be talking to him and he'll tell you about his boxing career. Another time you'll be talking to him. What was it? The breakdancing? Was that the last time?
I was a breakdancer.
Now you're a muralist.
If we have time, I'll do a little break. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
Let's see. My monitor. There we go. So you see, there's stuff that's wrong here, right? Like the lips are like, because we're playing with shapes, and I'm waiting for this to dry so that I can show you what I can do here. We're playing with shapes, and because this is a very flexible medium, then it becomes a matter of, until you use the hard charcoal, but because this is very flexible, it becomes a matter of just fixing the shapes. Anything that I want to do, anything that I want to fix. This is bad over here. This underneath the nose, we got this light, and the mustache comes over, and so you can see with time, you can get in there and fix anything. And when you fix something, you just do one thing at a time. That's it. You fix one little thing at a time. You can't fix everything in a painting. So when I get into my render mode, right, I just go in and I just work out one area at a time, fix one thing at a time. And remember, there's only a couple of things that can be wrong. I know this is controversial to some people, but really, there's only a couple of things that can be wrong because we're not sculpting, right? You think about it like a sculpture as you begin to develop. After a while, as you're developing, okay, this is a box, this is a cylinder, right? But before you get to that stage, it's not a sculpture, it's just shapes. And so shapes, it become just a matter of fixing the shapes, solving the problem in front of you. Let's see. Let me pull up this. See? This now I want to show you one last thing. Let me just get this. You see? And you can see I can just slowly fix it. Everything. I can come in with my charcoal. Now this drip is dry. You see?
Ooh.
It can come in. Now, using this, I can get a really smooth finish if I wanted to, right? Right. And I can let it.
I'm really surprised by how much control you're getting with the brush, especially compared to a finger. Is that because the
Yeah.
oils in your finger are collecting the dust in a different way?
No, my finger is too fat, you know. But it's also a different.
That
It's
way.
also it's also a different. It's also a different look. The
Yeah.
bristle, with the finger, it's much more smooth. It's more like a like a whatchamacallit, like a stump,
Mhm.
whereas with the brush, it does something else, and it's different. And you're gonna have to try it on your own to see, you know, but it's different here. So here you can see how slowly I can just get in there and just start getting closer and closer, right? Little bits at a time, right? If you have patience, here's my finger, right? You can do it. I want to show you one last trick, right? Um, and this I learned from the concept artists, right? So I have talc, not the kind of talc you buy for your perfume, but the kind that you can buy at an art store that artists in the past, you know, some of them would mix talc in with the paint, for pastels and stuff like that. So if I put talc down, it doesn't do anything, right? But let's see, where can we do? Yeah, if I put talc down in an area where I'm gonna work, you see, I put a little bit of talc down in there, right? So I want to get this very smooth. What's great about the talc is that it allows me, if I needed to to get really, really, really like a look that looks like it's photographic, like no brush strokes. So now I put down the talc, and then I'm grabbing, one of my charcoal, right? Maybe here, right? And now the charcoal goes on really smooth, right?
Oh, wow.
It goes on really smooth, allowing you to get these great subtleties. You see? So sometimes, you've seen some of my work and it looks photographic, and it's with the talc. You can really, right? You see?
And definitely make sure everyone to follow Ricky Mojica on his Instagram at Ricky Mojica Artist, and you can see some of these works.
But you see over here, like I've taken this and I've just with the talc, it allows me to get in there nice and light, right? And then when I smooth that out with my finger, it gets very photographic. You see?
Oh, wow.
It's amazing what that does. Of course, don't do it anywhere. I didn't put any talc. Look at the difference here, and I didn't put any talc here.
Mhm.
And you see, it's a lot cruder,
Right.
the approach, and you have to be way more delicate. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah. Can you zoom in on that a little bit and show us the talc
Okay.
area and the non-talc
So
area
here
just so we really see it?
I'm going to zoom in a little bit, right?
Okay.
And I'm actually going to put a little bit more talc
Okay.
and do this over here. You see?
Mhm.
So I'm going to take some talc. I'm dipping the bristle brush into the talc. Hold up a second. I just closed the cover. Right?
And there's another question in the chat. Pixel saying, am I mistaken, or has he not used an eraser at all? You haven't used your eraser this drawing.
Barely. The eraser, I think of the eraser as a brush. And so I haven't needed it yet, but I have used it. I'll use it a little bit up here on the face. And I could still use it some more. But look here. So I've got this talc on here,
Mhm.
and I'm just putting it on. You see, it doesn't do anything. It's not like adding white charcoal or something like that, right?
Mhm.
It makes the surface slick,
Ah.
right?
There was
And
a
then
comment earlier in the chat about disliking the surface of charcoal paper, so this talc powder might be a good solution. I'm
yeah,
afraid I don't remember who said it now, but it might be a good solution for that.
it can be, right? You can also use, um, smoother paper. Okay, so here, so now I want to get this little thing here. You see it now?
It's so
It-
subtle.
it's so subtle. You can be very subtle with it. And even if I use the softer, the green, right?
Yes.
It's very subtle, but this isn't the last straw, because watch what happens if I go like this, right?
We have like 30 seconds, Ricky.
Okay. All right. Here we have this. I'm going to go faster than I would, but you see that? And then if I take that and then I soften that some more, I mean, it's amazing layered how you can get super, super photorealistic look if you want. And I find that goes together well with the painterliness, right? So like
Absolutely.
if I have an area that's very photorealistic, right?
Mhm.
Together with the painterliness, it's nice, right? So now
Right.
you see how
One last
that's
question for you. Will the talc work with graphite as well?
I haven't tried it. Try
Okay.
it. Let me know.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Okay, Ricky, I'm afraid we are
Hey,
out of time for today. So any
hey,
last words?
yeah,
Beautiful.
so now he the drawing could be better, but you see the feeling. It's there's this organic, spontaneous look to it that I love. Remind you that this face would take me 3 hours, 2 or 3 hours, if I were doing it as my own piece.
Absolutely. Well,
Okay.
thank you so much for being with us and sharing this. We've never had a demo quite like this before, so we're so happy to have you here and to learn with you today. Everybody, don't forget to visit Ricky's website, 𝗥𝗶𝗁𝗄.com, and make sure to follow him on Instagram at Ricky Mujica Artist. My Instagram is Mandy Fine Artist. I hope you follow me too. And you can also learn more about my school at 𝗂𝗶𝗁𝗄arts.com. I do have a gift for you today. Download the free ebook, 97 Incredible Art Secrets. Go to 97artsecrets.com/ASL. And if you haven't signed up for Gouache Live, it's time to do so. Main tickets start at only $47. On August 23rd, 2025, an incredible lineup of instructors will teach you about gouache painting, and you don't want to miss it. You can sign up at gouachelive.com. Everybody, don't forget to subscribe. Yeah. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel at Art School Live on YouTube and at Eric Rhodes on Instagram. Thank you all for being with us today. It's always lovely seeing you in the chat and getting to know you all better. And we will see you next week for Art School Live.